All right, let's jump right in. We are about to pull back the curtain on a world where high schoolers aren't just students, they're engineers, coders, and master strategists. A world where months of designing and building are put to the test in these 2-minute bursts of pure controlled chaos. This is way more than just an after-school club. It's the intense, high-stakes universe of competitive student robotics. Blue team should be terrified. So an announcer actually said that live during a huge match. And trust me, by the time we're done here, you're going to know exactly what terrifying situation he was looking at and why that one single moment tells you everything you need to know about the deep strategy of this game.
So, first things first, you gotta understand the battlefield. We're talking about the VEX Robotics competition, and for this season, the game is called Pushback. And yeah, the name is a pretty big clue. This game is all about who can control the space.
On the surface, the rules look pretty simple, right? You've got two teams, red and blue, and they're all trying to shove these foam blocks into different goals. You score extra points if you can control these special zones inside the goals, and you get a little bonus for parking your robot at the end. The whole match is super short, super intense, and it all kicks off with a 15-second autonomous period, where the robots have to run completely on their own using only pre-written code. And here's what's really cool. Everyone starts from the exact same place. VEX gives every team the instructions for a basic hero bot called DEX. You build it from the standard kit of parts. So it doesn't matter if you're a brand new team or a seasoned world champion, you can build this bot on day one and get a feel for the game. But, and this is a big but, nobody ever wins with the base model. And that, right there, is where the real fun begins, taking that simple box of parts and transforming it into a high-performance machine that can outdrive and outsmart the competition. So how do they do it? Well, let's start at the very foundation of any good robot. Literally, the first big decision every single team has to make is about the drivetrain. And it's a classic engineering trade-off. Do you go with these omnidirectional wheels? They give you incredible agility. You can zip around, turn on a dime. But the downside? You get pushed around really easily. Or do you go with good old traction wheels? You get amazing grip, you're a defensive powerhouse, a total wall, but turning becomes slow and clumsy. So what do you want to be? A dancer or a bulldozer? Okay, so you've picked your wheels, but listen, a super fast or super strong robot is totally useless if it's tipping over every time it gets hit. Stability is everything. So how do you make sure your creation stays balanced? Well, it turns out the solution to this high-tech problem is surprisingly low-tech. I mean, teams literally find the robot's center of gravity just by feel. You lift it up, slide your fingers in from the ends, and wherever it finally balances, that's your spot. The key is to then design the robot so all the heavy stuff, the battery, the motors, are built as low and as close to that point as possible. That's what gives you stability when things get rough. Now, to really get a competitive edge, teams start adding more advanced stuff. We're talking about pneumatics. These are pistons powered by compressed air. They let you build mechanisms that can snap open or shut with incredible speed and force. It's an absolute game changer for building things like super fast intakes or powerful lifting arms. Okay, so we've built the body, we've given it muscle, but now we have to give it a brain. And this is where the programming comes in, especially for that all-important 15-second autonomous period, when the robot is 100% on its own. I mean, really think about that for a second. In autonomous, you need your robot to drive forward exactly 50 centimeters, turn precisely 90 degrees, and stop without overshooting by even a little bit. How in the world is that possible when motors aren't perfect and wheels can sometimes slip? Well, the secret sauce that all the top teams use is this really elegant piece of code called a proportional loop, or, a P-loop. It's a super clever way to tell the robot not just where to go, but exactly how to get there with incredible precision. The logic is actually brilliant in its simplicity. The robot is constantly asking itself one question: how far do I still have to go? If it's far away from its target, the motors go full blast. But as it gets closer and closer, the code automatically tells the motors to slow down, proportionally. Honestly, it's just like how you park a car. You don't just floor it and then slam the brakes, right? You ease into the parking spot. A P-loop lets the robot do that, but it's making that calculation thousands of times a second. So let's say you've got a well-built robot with some killer code. You're feeling good. But in any competitive game, whether it's robotics or video games, eventually a meta emerges. That's, one design or one strategy that's just so good, so effective, that it forces everyone else to change how they play the game.
And for the game of Pushback, this game-changing innovation wasn't some super complex 1,000-part machine. Nope. It was actually surprisingly simple, and it was designed to exploit one little feature of the goals.
So meet the Discor hook. It's really just a single piece of metal on one of those pneumatic pistons. Its only job is to shoot into the goal and nudge blocks from the edge into that protected control zone deep inside. Now, why is that so powerful? Because once a block is in that zone, it's almost physically impossible for an opponent's robot to get it back out. It is a way to literally lock in your points. And to really get why this hook is so huge, you have to see what happens when you don't have one. If your blocks are just sitting there on the edge of the goal, a single well-timed ram from an opponent can send them all flying out. All that work you did to score? Gone. In an instant. The hook prevents that. It secures your points. It's an insurance policy. The existence of this one simple little hook completely rewrites the entire strategic playbook for the match. All of a sudden, the whole game boils down to one simple question. Does your team have a hook, and does the other team? And look at how drastically the strategy changes. If both you and your opponents have hooks, the match becomes this frantic race. You have to win that autonomous period, score your blocks, lock them in with the hook, and then spend the rest of the match playing aggressive defense. But if your team doesn't have a hook, and they do, oh, you are in trouble. Your only hope is a desperate defensive plan. You have to funnel all your blocks to one robot while your partner just tries to get in the way, trying to protect the few unsecured points you have. And that brings us all the way back to the beginning. That terrifying situation the analyst was talking about, he was looking at a blue alliance that had no hooks, facing off against a red alliance that did. He knew just by looking at the robots that blue had no way to secure their points, while red could score and lock them down whenever they wanted. It wasn't just that blue was losing the match, they were strategically checkmated before it even really started. So why does any of this matter? Well, because underneath all the foam blocks and the metal parts, these students are learning the entire engineering design process, just in miniature. They brainstorm, they build, they test, they fail, and they try again. They're learning about trade-offs, creative solutions, and how to adapt their entire strategy on the fly. This is real-world experience. And these challenges, they're always changing. Like a new rule just came out that limits teams to using only 12 pieces of plastic, a material that's awesome for making custom parts. And it brings up a classic design question, one that engineers face all the time. Is a rule like this a necessary step to level the playing field, to make things fair for teams with fewer resources? Or is it just a break on the exact kind of innovation and creativity this whole competition is supposed to be about?